Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Jack OATz to go. You either know or you don't. As you guys always know, the first thing I would like to say is thank you guys so much for rocking with the page. Like I said, I don't really do this for numbers, so the fact that you guys still even subscribe, like I haven't posted anything for a little over a week, and I have people just subscribing. That's really cool. But I want to just reiterate, I do this for fun. I think I've said it in another video. I don't have very many people to talk to anime and manga about, right? So, this is really nice for me to be in a community that I can talk to everything about, right? But yeah, today, really cool video. This is gonna be a strictly Yuno video. Might mention Asta like one time towards the end here. And this might be a bit of a two-parter. As you'll see in the end, we start getting really deep into a new concept that I'll further introduce into another video. But I can't talk about that concept without talking about Asta and Noelle as well. So, I mean, it's really nice to make a Yuno video. And then the fact that this went so deep that I can now add Noelle into this as well is pretty nice, because I've been having a really hard time placing Noelle in this story with these two other guys. So, yeah, thank you guys again for tuning in. I mean, let's just get starting. So, like, the question really is Yuno the Chosen One, right? So there's so many things that sets Yuno apart from so many other mages in the series, but today I really want to focus on the main thing that seems to set Yuno apart, and that's the fact that Mana seems to be drawn to him, and he's able to break down spells. I know I don't make Yuno-centric videos all that often, but like I said, trust me, I really want to. But Yuno's story hasn't quite developed so much since we learned that he was a prince almost a whole year ago. While it told us a lot, it still told us very little, and we're still left to wonder why the world seems to react to him the way it does. It's no secret that the running theory behind Yuno's magic is that it's not just wind magic, but that it may have the qualities of Aether. I've talked about this a lot in depth, also calling it quintessence in previous videos, and we might go into it a bit again further into the video. Psych! We're going to go into it again with even more evidence. And so, like, in previous videos and tweets, I've talked about Lorenz's views on Aether, as well as Einstein's view, which, if you didn't know, it later trumped Lorenz's views overall. Lorenz actually invited Einstein to his own university to give a lecture on Aether, and Einstein not only debunked Lorenz's views on Aether, but he made his own very plausible case, which ended up being the running theory for Aether. Over time, which, I mean, Einstein was on some G shit back in the day, I guess. So it's kind of a cool little tidbit if you didn't know that. But this next and more recent study that I'll be giving you guys is it comes from a guy named D.A. Davidson and his views on universal resonance. So, D. Davidson says, I've evolved this thesis on how shapes convert the Aether to distinct vibrations and other forces. This centers around the fundamental fact that that every shape is in the Aether or matter. The Aether is untainted space energy deprived of material organization. So the Aether gets prearranged by patterns inserted into the Aether by emotional beings. This etheric energy altercation is enhanced by the subtle pressure variance, which happens as an outcome of the changing gradients of the Aether. The results of this difference in gradients can be demonstrated by the discerning of a bathtub full of water. If somebody gets rid of the plug-in, while there's also a floating rubber ducky in this situation here, a whirlpool will be generated. And as the whirlpool gets stronger, it charms all the water and the entire content in it towards itself. So this fully describes what is happening with Yuno, but before I get into that, I do want to say I really like that D.A. Davidson makes this analogy of having it be like water. Remember, Aether is supposed to be the medium that all things travel in. Nothing can travel without a medium. That's pretty much just the law. Right, and if you're thinking like, well, we talk without a medium, no, that's still a medium. Air is a medium. It's just a much thinner medium, right? So there's like basic laws like that where sound in water actually travels a lot faster than it does in air. That's why you get like whales talking to each other over great distances, because it travels a lot better in water. That's why It's really interesting how they live down there. But they're like sharks and things like that are able to zone in on their prey from miles and miles away if they make any kind of noise. It can be a flutter of their fins. That's how well sound travels. So the theory behind Aether is just that, okay, so what is the medium in space? There's nothing out there. So by abiding by the laws that we have to abide by on a micro level, it only makes sense on a macro level, and that's why they were studying Aether to begin with. But if we take Aether, remember, he says that this centers around the fundamental fact that every shape is in the Aether or matter. The Aether is untainted space energy deprived of material organization. Now, let's go back to the Tree of Life or the Sephiroth, right? Above Keter is the Ein Sophar. This is God without form, which we will talk about later on in this video. But on this point, it's deprived of material organization. So what God did in the forming of the Tree of Life was pour his light into the first husk of Keter. And then he did that all the way down to Malkuth. Now, we already know that on the fifth husk on Geburah, they started breaking and thus forming the Clipot. So it broke 12 times, and then they were able to keep going. But this is pretty much the same fact that this God has no form. So he gave form to his energy. You see what I'm saying? So, like I was saying, it pretty much this describes what's happening with Yuno when Xenon's spell starts falling apart. In that situation, Yuno was the whirlpool that charmed the water and all the content in toward himself. I'd like to put a bigger emphasis on the fact that the water in this analogy is what Mana would be in this series, but there are other things in the water, just like Davidson points out. There's a rubber duck. The rubber duck is also affected by the whirlpool. While it has nothing to do with the water, the fact that it is within the space, it is also drawn in. This is shown when Yuno absorbs the magic that's in the air, which ended up making him arcane. This means he's not just taking in the mana, but also the attributes. Not to say Yuno would absorb someone's, let's say, fire magic, but instead the quality of the mana that composes it. Just like we see in the fight against Zagrid, he took in magic that has arcane qualities, thus allowing him to become a threat to devils. This next point Davidson touches on is how Aether was initially rejected among the scientific community, but later regained some credibility, and acquired a few different names over time. Some of you guys may recognize some of these names too, so keep an ear out. So he goes on to say, various traditions, both spiritual and wisdom, feature terms that explain powerful energy of which the whole world is created. Similarly, several groundbreaking scientific researchers have also suggested the presence of an energy that infuses all space and all existing material. Example of such terms given by these researchers and traditions to this universal sea of energy include biomagnetism, ki, prana, torsion, and orgone energy. Though conventional science misguidedly discharged the existence of the Aether, it some way relived it in the supposed zero-point energy field. This detection came by the manner of many scientific experimentations in which space was established to have quantifiable quantum variation present, even when the subatomic undertaking should have hypothetically remained ice-covered to a secession in meticulous experimental situations. Therefore, Davidson deduced that instead of admitting its blunder of discharging the Aether, the conventional scientific community as a substituted the Aether with a zero-point field. In other terms, zero-point and the Aether are both the same. The quantum vacuum's energy density is ostensibly numerous times greater compared to nuclear energy densities implied in Einstein's well-known equation E equals mc squared. So Aether's energy density has been determined to be so enormous that if scientists were capable of tapping into the present potential energy with a meager cubic foot of blank space, they would have sufficient energy to abscess every world's ocean. The additional study proposes that the matter is created and apprehended together by the zero-point energy field. This Aether is at the fundamental level, behindhand the pituitive force of physics. Electromagnetism, gravity, and the strong and feeble nuclear forces are the known forces of physics. In quintessence, every corporeal reality is an exhibition of, and collaboration with, this luminiferous Aether, the quantum field, the zero-point field. Now, You guys probably heard like the words key in there. This is going to be really important going into Black Clover, I feel like, especially since they're going overseas in the next arc, towards Yami's homeland. So we're probably going to learn a lot more about these concepts. It's very, very important. Like I said, this seems to connect directly to the Ein Safar and lore. And that's where everything started. And if you remember those videos where I talk about Jacob's Ladder and the Order of the Silver Star and all that stuff, you know that this is important. But just to touch on something that I didn't quite plan out for the video. Now, I was just doing just like regular, just goofing around, digging for some stuff to present to you guys. And I came across this symbol. And the symbol is like this little twirly. It's just a little twirly twirl. I don't know how else you'd call it. And I'm gonna see if I still have it pulled up here. But it was actually really cool because I wasn't expecting to find this. I don't think I have it pulled up anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think I do. That sucks. But I can still give you the picture. This is an Indian symbol that was used way back when, and this was pretty much to describe things like quintessence, and this is well before Einstein, and this is why like I tweet stuff like these ancient people were on some other shit because it seemed like they had some stuff figured out to a pretty fundamental level. So I thought it was really interesting, and if you look at that and then D.A. Davidson's chart on how he describes the Aether working, it's the exact same. So I just thought it was really cool. Anyway, in that last excerpt, he states that they discovered when they thought they were onto a new idea, but it was consequently just ended up calling Aether 0 point energy, or quintessence too. So the 0 point energy does go a bit more in depth though, because it's in that theory that temperature actually seems to matter quite a bit. In the study of 0 point energy, physicists Richard Freeman and John Wheeler calculated the 0 point radiation of the vacuum to be an order of magnitude greater than nuclear energy, as D.A. Davidson already said, with a single light bulb containing enough energy to boil all the world's oceans. This means Aether, while not being physical enough to study firsthand, is still potent enough to have disastrous effects on things that would be able to physically touch. It's a wild concept to grasp, but when speaking on forces of the universe, this is what we deal with. Things that are both quantifiable and unquantifiable. So just imagine the destructive capabilities of Aether when it is used in its rawest form, right? When you bring both physicality to it and its qualities, it can be extremely disastrous. But to go on, according to Einstein's theory of general relativity, any such energy would gravitate, and the experimental evidence from both the expansion of the universe, dark energy, and the Casimir effect shows any such energy to be exceptionally weak. A popular proposal that attempts to address this issue is to say that the fermion field has a negative 0 point energy, while the boson field has a positive 0 point energy, and thus these energies somehow cancel each other out. Interestingly enough, this description seems to embody the relationship Asta, but more so Liebe and Yuno have with their respective attributes. And this can lead into the greater thing, right? So I guess I can talk about it a bit now. Like I was saying, with the disastrous effects that Aether could have in its rawest form, its rawest and most physical form, this could present a problem, because if Yuno... right now, Yuno is only able to tap into this trait, or this mode, if you will. But there could be a point where he loses control, right? And he could end up being an antagonist that we didn't know was going to happen, if that makes sense. This is not like your typical rivalry, so we know there's a fight coming. There has to be between Yuno and Asta. We just don't know in what the dynamic is going to be, and I don't think Yuno is going to be able to help it in this case. There's something going on, and I in my own head, I would attribute these etheric properties to the magic stone that Yuno has. I'm not sure why or how. I just know that it has all the 4 cardinal directions and then some on that magic stone. So, I mean, I think it comes from there. We still don't know much about magic stones either. Like I said in previous videos, I would think that these are your philosopher's stones, and we're going to find out more for sure because they're important, of course. But I think that may lose control. He may become that whirlpool and end up absorbing so much mana that he does maybe become the Aether, or his body becomes the vessel for the actual ultimate god. But again, we'll kind of get into that later. So I want to get to back to 0 point energy, though. In this representation of 0 point energy, we see the correlation between kinetic energy and temperature. As temperature increases, the faster molecules move, and vice versa. This is probably obvious since the differential between fire and ice is that the molecules in fire are moving at a rapid rate as opposed to the molecules in ice that are at a theoretical stop. Nothing fully loses energy, as the 0 point energy suggests, and that's just how physics goes, so that's why I say a theoretical stop. As we reach the 0 point below the 0 point energy boundary, we hit negative points, which leads to the object in question's change of state. In their example, they use helium. So at the 0 point energy, helium starts as a gas and becomes a liquid, but maintains its 0 point energy and does not freeze and exhibits a state of superfluidity. Meaning, if you take a superfluid and stir it, it will stir indefinitely. So relating this back to what I was saying earlier, he reaches this superfluid point in which he creates this whirlpool that attracts mana toward him, allowing him to break down spells. But as we get further into this video, we'll understand why this could end up being highly destructive further down the line. Just more in-depth stuff that I've just covered. So this will also go back to my previous videos where I speak on Austin, reaching a state of ipsissimus, which would render their physical bodies in a state much like death. But back to the correlation between temperature and molecular motion when speaking on the 0 point energy theory. Let's take this from a lore standpoint now. We did the scientific stuff. So from a lore standpoint, Yuno's new form is called the Spirit of Boreas. We know that his forms so far have taken on the names of 2 out of the 4 gods of wind in Greek mythology. Boreas specifically is not only the god of the north winds, but the god of the icy winds. Take a look at the chart and see if the molecules come to a theoretical stop once we hit 0 Kelvin. This form to me is indicative of Boreas stopping the natural flow of mana and Yuno's added quality of reaching a further superfluid state. Instead draws it in towards him for his own usage. See, it's science and lore. And if you're a fan of the Hungry Joker, I haven't read too much, but from what I understand, the Hungry Joker is very science heavy. So I think it's very impressive that Tabata pretty much made an offshoot of Hungry Joker. Like, this is his second shot at Hungry Joker, but it's taking a more lore standpoint from it and is still giving us science behind all of this stuff. So I'm never going to state these things as a fact. Like, this may or may not be what Tabata is going for, but it does seem to match up pretty well. So I would give Tabata this credit, like, to match up lore and science and just weave in and out of these things so flawlessly like he does. It just speaks to his writing. So, I mean, if you don't like this story, that's on you. I mean, I don't know what you guys want from a writer, but anyway, now to deviate slightly away from Aether, I've been meaning to make a video talking about an aspect of Austin and that I've been hinting at for quite some time now. A lot of you kind of got on me for saying Austin's Jesus a couple months ago, and while I can't fully blame you, I would like to clarify. While Tabata may not be going for a literal Jesus figure, understand that in the videos where I talk about the Order of the Silver Star, Order of the Rosy Cross, and Order of the Golden Dawn, that reaching ipsissimus is the goal, and this goal is it's essentially what Jesus went through to reach a state higher than man. Where Crowley calls the individual reaching the state ipsissimus, there's another term that has been used to define a being that has reached completion, and that term is pleroma. The pleroma refers to a person that has reached their highest state and is the symbol for the totality of reality or the totality of God. It is the path of return to divinity from the fall into physical form. Since all life is said to have come from the divine and fallen into Malkut and left to ascend the ladder, or the tree of life, or Sephiroth, as we've been over in previous videos already. The goal of each soul is to make to make it back to the singular God, which is the Ein Sophar, or God without form. So if you guys aren't totally familiar with that, I'd suggest going back, especially with this next part. It's going to be a lot to take in, so just be aware that you may have to pause and reflect, or just straight up run the whole thing back a few times. But most of this will be referring to Yuno, with some parts relating back to Asta and where they stand on a cosmic level within the series. So bear with me. So this absolute mess of a picture is everything the Pleroma encompasses. I know it's a lot, but thankfully we've already gone over most of these things in previous videos, so we're kind of chilling. If you're new and some of these things don't seem familiar to you, I'd suggest just watching some earlier videos, and we'll see you when you get back. Anywho, so here's the in-depth description of the Pleroma. The cosmology of the Pleroma, from Greek meaning the fullness, that would be the totality of divine powers, is a mystical teaching of Coptic Gnostic Christianity, recorded in the story of Pistis Sophia, which comes to us from several sources. The version from the Askew Codex, written in the 3rd or 4th century, one of the 3 documenting the Gnostic tradition known to exist prior to the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in Upper Egypt in 1945. The Pistis Sophia tells us that its teachings were given by Jesus to his disciples, including 3 women, Mother Mary, Magdalene, and Martha, for 11 years after his resurrection. We are told that most of this time Jesus revealed only the lower mysteries until at some point he became fully enlightened and was able to transmit the higher mysteries. Gnosticism emerged from Judaic, Zoroastrianism, and Neoplatonism. Particularly the cosmology of the Timaeus merging with the early Christianity in the 1st and 2nd centuries. A number of different sects developed in the Middle East, each with slightly different details to the story. The Pistis Sophia is the story of Sophia's fall from grace and her eventual redemption. This is identified with the soul and as the opposite, the zigzag of Jesus. Thus, hers is the journey of the soul. In the Askew Codex, she falls from the 13th Aeon, a lofty yet not divine position in the cosmology, to the level of Archons, the fallen lords who rule the lower material plane, where she is persecuted, but with her repentant efforts and desire to serve the light, a process of awakening, she is eventually restored to her lofty position. Other versions, particularly the Apocryphon of the John manuscript in the Nag Hammadi Library, she is seen as a divine being who falls into material form. Like Jesus, her mission is to bring knowledge to Earth. The Pleroma exists only in this galaxy. The aeons being the aeonic beings inhabit the galactic core. Periodically, it emits cosmic substance into the galactic arms to create the lower worlds of experience. Sophia's came forth as such, creating our solar system and becoming the living matrix in which we all exist. So notice that this character, Sophia, falls from her height. She was, if you imagine the tree of life in Klippat, right, she was above Keter, right? She was without form. She fell into physical form, which means she descended the ladder into Malkut, the physical realm. But in order to ascend, she also had to fall into the archonic tree. So that's where all the demons reside. So she fell into the Klippat as well as she was ascending the ladder. This is something we've already gone over, by the way. This is why we have that picture where it says, while you are ascending the tree, you start out as the 1st degree, and then it says it equals the 10th degree. And you move up to the next one, it's the 2nd degree, which equals the 9th degree. So that means as you're ascending, you are also descending. You can't have one without the other. And this is why I really like this mode of thought from these religions and these takes, is because people really focus on just the good. Like, you think like, oh, you would only be associated with angels and all that good stuff to really know yourself and to heighten yourself. And that's really not the case when it comes to inner peace. You have to become acquainted with your demons. You have to make friends with your demons, not just avoid them and shut them out, because all that does is pervert them and make them stronger and stronger, because you can only hold those bad things out for so long. So it's better to recognize faults and act on them than it is to just hide them away. And this is what we're seeing physically in Black Clover, and we physically see Asta making friends with his devil. It's not impossible, but we see devils like Lilith and Nama who are so warped and twisted because they've been there for so long, and all they know is hate now. That's all they know: hate, malice, and destruction. That's all they know. So I think we're going to see some spiritual awakening coming from Asta for sure, and possibly even Yuno. But I do want to put in this note too when speaking on the Pleroma. This is a really cool side to this, and it goes over some stuff that I've already said, but it kind of goes over it in a cool way. So the teaching and cosmology of the Pistis Sophia is unique among the mystery traditions in its straightforward recognition of existence of the shadow, the fallen dark or evil, the archons, its effect in our lives, and how to overcome it. Now, when they say things like the mystery traditions, they're talking about the Order of the Silver Star and all that stuff. So just make sure that you know that going forward. These are inorganic, conscious, but soulless beings formed before the earth and appearing as a prenatal human form. Most people, even those on a mystical spiritual path, tend to deny the reality of the dark, unable and are unwilling to deal with it, although many of these individuals working in the astral planes have come face to face with it, usually unprepared and suffering the consequences as a result. The Mystery School acknowledges its existence and trains its initiates in the art of self-protection when traveling in the higher dimensions, that is, building and using shields. As the teacher admonishes, just never leave home without them, which means don't leave home without your shields. The purpose or the agenda of the archons, or the demons, is to obstruct humanity's spiritual enlightenment, which they do by manipulating our minds by influencing the way we perceive reality. They have rejected the sovereignty of the divine creator, convinced that they themselves are the creators of the world. However, like all life forms, they must have light to survive, and so have become parasitic, feeding on human subtle energies or their light. And so they do everything in their power to maintain control over humanity. Most of all, they do not want us to know their existence and agenda, and so they enlist the assistance of religions, corporations, politicians to implement their agenda. Now, that was some really, really cool stuff, right? And this is, again, stuff I've gone over before. This might just be a little bit better worded. So I've told you that these devils seem to have magic that pertains to just very physical, hard laws that humans have to abide by, right? Gravity, space, time, all of that stuff. But this is, it's, goodness gracious, my computer is freaking out. Sorry, let me just fix this stuff real quick. There we go. So yeah, we have all this stuff, and we have the fire and the ice, right? And this, to me, is exactly what is being described. And, oh my God, shut up. Like, what are we doing here? Oh my God. Anyway, if I hear one more noise. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. They feel like if they control these things, they're able to manipulate the way humans perceive, the world around them, where they think that they have to abide by these rules. And I kind of they kind of mention this word, and I think it's really cool because this is one of the most groundbreaking movies of all time, and it was called The Matrix, right? And Neo is. It's the same concepts. It really is. It's the exact same concept that we're presenting here. And it has the religion behind it. It has some of the science as well. Just more in a sci-fi way. So Neo, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But Neo, they live in this computer world. It's called the Matrix. And the actual reality was consumed by these robots and computers, and they forced humans into slavery pretty much by putting their physical bodies in these pods and making them live this false reality that was governed by computers. So every law, like gravity and things like that, was just a code given to them by these computers to abide by. So Neo was able to become awakened by the people I forgot if they had a name, but Morpheus was the lead of them. But people that existed outside the Matrix, they were able to escape these pods and enter the Matrix as they wished. But they were also able to rewrite these codes and bend the laws of physics within the Matrix, right? So Neo, by the end of it, realizes time is time, space, gravity, all that stuff are just illusions. And you can see when he fully awakens and is starting to fight what they call the viruses in this. They were triplets. They were twins, and they were pretty much ones to clean up people that realized that the Matrix existed. So as he's fighting the, I think his name was just John Smith, generic name. As he's fighting the main one, Neo awakens. He actually ended up dying. His bodily function stopped, and this is where he reaches that state that I'm talking about, Ipsissimus, right? And he comes back to life. He rewrote the code, the very law of life and death himself, came back to life, and started putting the beat down. Like, one of the most hype fight scenes ever. Like, if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch it. But this is what happened. He reached that state of Ipsissimus, and Agent Smith was no longer able to land punches or bullets on him anymore. He was too fast, too strong, because Neo was rewriting those codes in real time, making him stronger and faster and more deadly than Agent Smith could. So he overwrote the system, and at the end was the best part. It was like the most amazing part, and I remember seeing it in the movie theaters where Neo, they exit and enter the Matrix through phone booths, which is kind of cool. It's a play on like Superman stuff, and by the end you really see it. So they have to get to one of the phone booths, or else they can't leave the Matrix. So, you know, if they're outnumbered and getting outclassed by the agents that are trying to wipe them out, then they actually die. When they die in the Matrix, they die in real life. So they have to get there, and it's just a testament to Neo being the chosen one, where he was able to just rewrite the code himself. He didn't need the Matrix telling him when to die. So that in and of itself was cool. But at the end, he goes to a phone booth. They kind of lost track of Neo for a bit, but he's on the phone, and he's giving them a message saying like something like something along the terms like he'll be back, but like the fight isn't over. And the last scene is him just flying away. And this was like the height. Like, everyone's like jumping from building to building. That was like one of the training things, was like, you know, space doesn't exist unless you allow it to exist. So you need to jump from the top of this skyscraper and land like just 1,000 yards away on top of another skyscraper without falling in between. So that it was really impressive that he mastered flight at the end of it. That means space was completely out of the question at this point, and gravity too. So this is essentially the concept. He became the Pleroma, especially into the last movie. But we're not here talking about the Matrix, but it's the same concept. So like I was saying, that's the Pleroma in its most descriptive totality. At the very end, we even touch on the Archons or the demons. I've said this in other videos, but notice how their magic thus far are very physical. They mimic the laws of the things humans abide by on a daily basis. So if they feel if they have control over these things, they rule the universe. But as we know now, that is not the case, and this is precisely what we see with Yuno when he breaks down Xenon's spell. It's really interesting stuff. Now, this is going to go into the next video. This is where the concept I want to introduce starts, but I'm going to put it in the next video. The reason, and I'm going to say it like this: this is the answer in its least descriptive form. The reason why Yuno is able to break down spells and the reality that they live in, because remember, it's not just the spells, but remember when Zagreud's observing the both of them, Yuno's drawing in the mana, and the physical matter is also deteriorating, right? So, whereas Asta is, he's dissipating the magic. The Yuno is drawing in the magic, but the physical stuff is dissipating altogether. So, it's because, in a sense, Yuno just gets it. He understands that this reality is somewhat of an illusion, right? And we will, like I said, we'll talk about it in the next video, but I can't talk about the next concept, which no one has ever talked about, ever. I haven't even talked about it. It's very, very interesting. But I just can't talk about it without including Austin Noel, and I had to give my boy Yuno his own video because he deserves it. He's an integral part of the story. But like I said, we might have to look out for him, because if this whirlpool effect gets out of control, then Yuno is going to become a legitimate problem that Asta is the only contender to stop. So I think we're set up for a very cool story. But I'm going to leave this video here and talk about, Austin Noel and take this pleroma concept to the next level, because the rabbit hole goes deep, but I would suggest just refreshing on the Order of the Silver Star, Rosy Cross, and Golden Dawn videos, as well as where I talk about Austin being the Aeon of Horus before that video drops, so it all makes sense. But I want to thank you guys for tuning into the video. If you stuck around this long, props, you're a goat. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, any comments, concerns, death threats, same thing on Twitter. It might be a good idea to find me on Twitter, just because there are some times where I don't want to make a video, and just making just like an in-depth thread sometimes just kind of helps. So you kind of get both sides to the theory game here. But yeah, that's all I got today. Sorry for the delay on this. I had some technical issues like I usually do. I suck at this. I'm sorry. But I will see you guys in the next video. I still have the Agrippa video planned to come out. It's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be really short, too. It's just going to introduce some potentially new magic that we might see. That would be kind of cool, actually, especially with this new development with Magna. Oh, my gosh. We are reading some peak fiction right now, to be honest with you. Spoiler alert. Let's talk about it for just a bit. So, wow. Tabata is writing his ass off. I don't know what the gripe is about people hating on Black Clover and Tabata, but Tabata is writing his ass off right now, because this is not a spell Magna can just use back to back. He needs another 6 months to make this happen, and I think that's so beautiful, right? Because one of the producers, or not a producer, one of the editors said, yo, I know Magna's gone, but just keep an eye out for him. And we see why, right? So I think it's really cool what they're doing with Magna. And even though this spell is super broken, again, he can't use it again for another 6 months. He's got to prep this that whole time for it to work. So that's really cool that it has that sort of, there's a stopgap in the stopgap. So I like that. There's got to be drawbacks to these broken powers, for sure. So even if people want to call that an ass bowl, it's at least fair to the system. And Magna, from here on out, is going to have to find ways to keep himself relevant in the fights. And I'm wondering if he already developed some other skills that might attest to that, but we'll see. Like I said, I really like this. Now, from a contextual standpoint, where I go with this, okay, you guys know how I feel about Belphegor and all that stuff. And I would just say, yes, I'm dying on this hill still. Stop. Anyway, let's put it in this perspective, right? Magna comes in clutch because we're thinking Dante is the be-all, end-all. He's got the devil. And if they take Dante down, it stops this devil from doing any more harm, right? But if they don't actually need Dante, because remember, Morris has similar markings. His are thinner. They're more thorn-like than Dante's are. And Morris was the one who sped up the Advent, right? So he did that through the knowledge of, the previous queen that he took from Laura Pachica. But we also have to realize that within the Clipbot, Lucifugio Focal is the one who oversees those contracts. So think of an actual contract. You have a lot of words, very fine print. If you know that in and out, you can cut corners. So it would make sense if Morris, like I've been saying, has the actual Lucifer, not Lucifer, but Lucifugio Focal, and not Dante. So, in story-wise, it would go like this. Morris has Lucifero, while Dante has Belphegor. Now, imagine the fact, and it still works out, because remember I say, imagine Asta and Liabe fight Dante and they bring him down, they find out he's Belphegor, and that was already a big fight, and now this Lucifero is still out there, and he's a much bigger problem than Belphegor ever was. So Belphegor and Lucifero are removed by 5 other demons. So Lucifero exists very, very deep within the Clipbot, which means he's very strong. So it still works with Magna. So Magna brings him down. They think they've got the shit in the bag. All they got to do is defeat Magicula and whoever Xenon's got, which is probably Belial, Beelzebub. So then they find out that Morris has it. And then Morris is a huge problem. Like a huge problem. And I mean, just think of it this way too. Don't think just because we got guys like Lilith and Nama, or ladies like Lilith and Nama, that these devils are just stupid. Like, no, that was them. They're stupid. We have to remember Zagrid, not even a supreme ranked devil, was able to pull over some nasty stuff over the elves and humans alike, and still manipulated them for 500 years out to his own ends. And succeeded. So imagine supreme ranking devils that actually rule the... Oh my god! Anyway, supreme ranking devils that actually rule over the hells. Like, they have to be smart like that. So we're going to get a huge Uno reverse card. And I think that's where it is. That's the only place for me that it could be, this Belphegor Lucifero thing. Okay, so when it comes out that way, well, I mean, we said we're not about the numbers, but like you gotta give your boy some props when it happens. But also just sweep it under the rug if it doesn't happen. So anyway, I just like what's going on a lot. Zora's gonna have some crazy stuff in clutch, because if this is what Magna did and he trained off of Zora, imagine what Zora's been prepping. Imagine what Zora's been prepping. Imagine that. Anyway, we're reading Peak. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Jack Goes to Go. You either know or you don't.
I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Pull up, say what's the deal, bruh? See how I lose my cool any second if they don't hear us. Many people will fear us. Say when you look in the mirror, don't you compare us to anything that get embarrassed. Ha, woo. So many people be talking like they want the polish or something. I noticed that all of you polish and all of you people get punished. It's hard to keep food on your stomach, to all of the hustle keep running. That's hard to stay humble with nothing. We're off of the jungle, we're bugging. So let me come down all of a sudden. I told you that we keep it buzzing. Ha, woo. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out.